Hi, and welcome to this installment of Frank and Mary here in Westborough. If you haven't watched this show before, my name is Art Bergeron. My day job is I do nothing but elder law, and I work at Myrick O'Connell. We actually have an office here in Westborough. There are about 20 of us here in Westborough. We're actually the biggest firm in Westborough. But this is not about my day job, and it's not about elder law. It's really about my friends Frank and Mary. If you've been to presentations of mine, you know that Frank and Mary's goal in life is to live in their house until they die and be buried in the backyard. And if they live in Westborough, that means right here. They don't want to leave. They don't want to go to San Diego to be with their kids. They don't want to go even to Marlboro, where I live. They want to stay here. So the question for you, if you're like Frank and Mary, is who do you need to know? And what are the programs you need to know about in order to be able to stay right here for as long as you want to stay? And many of you, a few of you know me, many of you know my co-host Shelby Marshall, who agreed to do this with me a long time ago, like maybe a year and a half, long time now, right? And she keeps finding these great guests because she knows everybody. And today she has, actually, I've heard one of her colleagues. It's really about my friends Frank and her, right? So it's kind of fortunately, we didn't have to post this meeting or any area. If you've been to presentations of colleagues, right? So Shelby, whom do we have today and what are we talking? You know that Frank and Mary's goal.
And good morning to our audience. So I'm really excited that, yes, my colleague and the vice chair of our Board of Selectmen, Alan Edinberg, is today's guest. So he's here to talk to us about affordable housing in Westborough and the initiative that is going on to
they don't want to leave. They don't want to go to San Diego.
And the working group that he is heading up. So he's done an amazing job of diving into this topic and really understanding the breadth and depth of kind of what it is at a state level, and working to bring together a team of interested residents with a variety of backgrounds to ultimately kind of comprise the working group. So we're going to turn it over to Alan. I probably won't even need to ask questions because he just kind of knows this. And but Alan, welcome. We'll prompt you with a couple of questions, but first of all, welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Alan, he doesn't look shy, but but maybe if he's really shy, we'll ask him a lot of questions.
Right.
And I just wanted to mention, Alan. So, kind of before focusing on elder law, when I started getting really old, a lot of my work was in real estate, and so I came to appreciate the complexity of what you're trying to accomplish. And the courage that you have to really look at something which is really long term. There's very little kind of short term payoff to this. But it just has to be confronted. So it's wonderful that you're doing this.
Well, thank you, and thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here and be able to share what we're doing and what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah. So Alan, I'll start with a question and then you just run with it. We did a little bit of rehearsal beforehand, so I know he knows his content so well that questions, like I said, aren't necessary. So, Alan, what's the Affordable Housing Trust Working Group? Why are you doing it? Take it away.
Okay. So the Affordable Housing Trust Working Group, which I realize is a name that's way too long for any committee, was really created following an open, affordable housing forum that was hosted by the Board of Selectmen back in January, and which was actually the result of a series of work that happened within the Board of Selectmen over the course of last summer and last fall. I can get into that a little bit later if we want to know more of the background, but the goal of the Affordable Housing Trust Working Group is to create the structure, the governance, an operating plan for a municipal affordable housing trust for the town of Westborough, and to be able at our fall special town meeting bring forward a series of warrant articles to create the trust and set its governance and provide an initial set of funding so the trust can begin its work. Now, of course, that begs the question, what is a municipal affordable housing trust? And so I'll assume that's your next question. I'll go ahead and answer it. A municipal affordable housing trust, as the name applies, is a real estate trust created by a town with
establish an affordable housing trust and
create, maintain, and preserve affordable housing. And as such, trusts can have a very broad range of activities and powers. They can act as a developer and help build. They can act as a financing agency to help fund private development or other public development of affordable house. they can operate as a real estate management company and help maintain and operate affordable housing. And each trust takes what's available under state law and picks what it wants to do as far as its structure and the types of projects, and really focuses the needs on its specific town. So Westborough's Affordable Housing Trust will focus on the affordable housing needs in Westborough. And so we're a committee of...
Bring together a team of interest.
I'm joined by Ed Bain, Stephen Durrett, Hank Roach, Amy Dwyer, Valeria Moya, and Jennifer Giuliano. We have, well, there was no requirement for the Board of Selectmen that this working group have representation from other committees. We do have representation, and people who also happen to serve, I should really say, on the school committee, on the pre-K through 3 school building committee. So someone with a deep understanding of how state rules work when it comes to construction and development projects. A member of the advisory finance committee, real estate professionals, and citizens with a passion for affordable housing and the needs of our community.
Excellent. Thank you for that introduction. If you can talk about the work that is being done by the working group. So where are you at right now? Because I know you just recently started meetings, so it took a while to kind of formulate the group. Where are you at right now, and what's the kind of timeline and trajectory for the outcome of the work of the working group?
So the outcome of the group, the deliverable, will be an actual trust document that we will look for the
dimensionality. So it might kind of before
with the Registrar of Deeds and the Land Court that establishes the trust, and so that includes all of the legalities about how the trust will exist and how it'll operate. But really, the end point is a series of warrant articles for special fall town meeting, where there'll be one specific article where we ask the town to accept Mass General Law, Chapter 44, Section 55C.
I think Arthur knows it by heart. He could probably recite it if we wanted him to.
So, but Chapter 44, Section 55C will create the trust, and as part of the state laws we accept as town bylaws under Article 10 of our town bylaws in accordance with the town charter. And so one deliverable is that warrant article and a version of the trust that we believe is ready to file with the Registrar of Deeds and the Land Court to get the trust up and legally running. Additionally, we're hoping to have warrant articles to provide initial funding for the trust. And with that, we want to present to the community and have the community understand how this trust is going to operate and the guiding principles we're using and the trust we use in making decisions and in prioritizing and be able to share what we're understand how the money is going to be used, and what type of projects or activities we would expect the trust to undertake, at least in the first couple of years. Trusts can evolve over time based on the changing needs of the community, and they're also designed to be highly responsive to opportunities that come to market. So, for example, in a community near ours, there was a building owner with a 10-unit apartment building, and he had already committed that 2 of those units would be affordable. And he wasn't planning on selling, but a developer approached him and said, "Hey, we want to buy your building. Maybe you want to retire." He hadn't thought about it, but sort of liked the idea. But he had, a place in his heart for affordable housing, and so he approached that town's housing trust and said, "If you can match the offer, I'll sell to you, and you can have the whole building and use it for affordable housing going forward and help the community long term." And so a housing trust can be ready to respond to a unique opportunity like that, as well as engage in long-term planning.
And I guess what's so exciting about the trust is it points to exactly that in the nature of real estate, things have got to move quick. You need to be ready to respond. And the whole design of town government, or of government in general, is to provide checks and balances to make sure that nothing funny happens. It kind of, by its nature, it's designed to slow things down to make sure everybody kind of goes, "Oh, whoa," So the trust really goes to the heart of what you're trying to accomplish if it's dealing with real estate in order to produce the affordable housing.
Right. And as far as that checks and balances, the the working group has had our first 2 meetings. We have our 3rd meeting this Friday morning. Videos of our past meeting are either up on our webpage in the town website, or will be shortly for the 2nd meeting. They're also available on Westborough TV, and I believe Westborough TV this Friday will be live broadcasting or live recording for us. So,
and Alan, can I just add one other question? Because once again, as an out-of-towner, maybe local folks would kind of know this, but where's the first chunk of money coming from? What are you expecting as the initial?
The Affordable Housing Trust Working Group.
Where did that come from?
Okay,
so the initial. And how are you thinking about it in the future? Right.
So the initial focus is actually coming from the Del Webb Chauncey Lake development up on the former state hospital property. As part of that as part of that special permit for that development, there was what's known as an inclusionary zoning requirement that said that the developer would either build a certain number of affordable units or fund a certain number of affordable units someplace else in town, or they would provide money to the town to facilitate that, increase in affordable housing. That amount is $1.4 million. It comes in 3 payments over the lifetime of the development project. So that's one of the initial sources of money. The other source is actually from what's known as mitigation funds, also from the Del Webb Chauncey Lake. When the original plan for that development was that 10%, 70 of the 700 units would be affordable for senior citizens with an age restriction housing trust, and impact the school system. After the initial approval of the zoning and the special permit, the state, the Department of Housing and Community Development, changed the application of their policies and said you can't age restrict an apartment or a condo 55 plus and prevent people under age of 18 from living there. And so rather than just canceling the affordable housing component of the project so it could move forward, the town did a phenomenal job negotiating with the developer and came to an agreement that went before the Zoning Board of Appeals, where that development is providing the town $9 million. In such trusts can have a building, it's a condition of each building getting its certificate of occupancy. And so the first payment of a little more than $642,000 has been made. At June's annual town meeting, there was a vote to create a stabilization fund to hold that money aside. We will ask at fall town meeting for some or all of that money from that initial payment to move into the trust. And then in the future, as additional payments out of that $9 million come in, town meeting will have a chance to decide or other whether it goes into the Affordable Housing Trust or goes into other projects related to supporting services for seniors, which is the purpose of the stabilization fund.
Shelby, can I just add one thing?
Yeah, please.
So once again, in my prior life, so I find myself doing a lot of this stuff and therefore being involved in a lot of these things in Marlborough, where I live, over time. And based on that and spending a lot of time on it, the approach you're taking
takes
the huge mistake that has been made regarding the creation of affordable housing over the last 10 or 20 years has been basically imposing these affordable units in these expensive projects, right? The net result being that you're generating very, very few units, right? So there end up being a handful of people who get rewarded with a brand new affordable unit, which tends to be an extremely expensive subsidy, as a result of which very few other units end up getting produced. So you have this very strange class of randomly chosen beneficiaries and everybody else is stuck. Whereas what you're doing is really fundamentally trying to spread the wealth, and figuring out with smart people like Alan, how you can generate housing across a whole bunch of ways, whether it's by kind of subsidizing existing stuff, doing a million different things. It's just wonderful. And the fact that you've got a significant amount of cash to put in gives you so much flexibility to really look positively. I think it's great.
And the what the working group has done now is we've divided the working group into 3 teams. The first team is what we're calling governance, which will be the legal structure of the trust. How many trustees? What are their terms? How do they vote? all of those logistics, as well as oversight. Mass law does not require any municipal oversight of the trust, but many towns that have trusts have some level of oversight. So we're looking at, at what point, if the and people who also happen to serve, I want the Board of Selectmen to concur with the plan, right? So that there's public confidence that the money's being used and being used well, and there's good stewardship. The second group is working on what we're calling operations. And this is really, right now, a huge data analysis project, which is what are our demographics? How are we expected to change? What's the cost burden for someone to live in Westborough? And therefore, what guidance and what priorities do we want to set for the trust moving forward? And the third group, which is ramping up now, is community engagement. And this is both educating the community about affordable housing and what the trust can do, as well as garnering support for the concept, so that we are hopefully, and we really want to be successful at fall town meeting and get this going. And so part of what that community focus is to help educate and break some of the stereotypes and misconceptions about affordable housing, and what that means for a community like Westborough. Because when we talk about affordable housing, yes, we're talking about our subsidized housing inventory, which is a certain type of affordable housing that the state uses to measure a community. And if we fall below a threshold, currently 10% of your housing stock has to qualify as subsidized affordable housing inventory. If you fall below that, then developers can put up developments and ignore local zoning rules for the most part. And you can end up with projects that are not good for the community. So certainly we want to help the town maintain that level. But affordable housing is more than that. The affordable housing bases its scope off of what's known as an area mean income, or roughly the average income of the area of the state we're in. And for us, for a family of four right now in our part of Worcester County, that area mean income is just under $86,000 a year. And that's for a family of four. And it scales down if it's a one-person family. So there are affordable housing programs. Subsidized housing inventory, that SHI number, is generally projects for people who are living at or below 80% of that area mean income. But you can do affordable housing for people and have programs for people who make as much as 135% of that AMI number. And that's really what is often referred to as workforce housing, right? So these are people that, absent the high value of real estate in town, would be able to afford to live here. They're working families, and maybe they just need help with the down payment, or they need a special mortgage program, or a slightly lower purchase price. So when we talk about affordable housing, we're talking about the full spectrum of how that can help make our housing community more robust.
Yeah, so Alan, let's talk a little bit about that, because I know that certainly the Del Webb project that you referenced was the approval at town meeting way back when was really predicated on providing affordable housing to our elders or our seniors, and minimizing any impact, or really negating any impact of adding school age kids to the district, and thus impacting tax rates. So as the working group brings its program forward and the trust gets established, how do we balance kind of who the trust benefits, right? So, because what I heard you just say, and we've talked about this, is it really is intended to benefit both those who are aging, like, I'm just going to say the people that have raised their kids, they've moved out of town, they still want to stay here, but they don't need the McMansion that they're living in.
Frank
right?
and Mary. Frank and Mary.
Thank you.
Right.
And yet we also want to have people who are engineers working at the new Amazon, or working at Olympus, right, that are able to come here and live and establish and be part of our community. So
we'll create the trust and
vision that comes together, and that's not a simple question, I realize.
So we envision setting those priorities really based on community input and an analysis of the data, right? So anecdotally, we hear a lot about the need for more affordable housing for seniors, for empty nesters who want to move out of the house into a condo or into an apartment. One deliverable is that warrant us and stay in town, and how that's hard to do, that it's hard for people on fixed incomes to, move, cover the mortgage, and pay the property, the residential real estate property taxes. And so we're confirming that and getting a sense of what the scope is in the land court to get the trust by really doing a detailed data analysis of demographics and projected trends. As we look at other needs for affordable housing, we'll look at other data. So, for example, when we did our first high-level round of data analysis before the Affordable Housing Forum in January, we learned that population-wise, the Westborough has a significantly lower percentage of its population in the age group of 20 to 34 than the rest of the state. We're about 15% below. And so you look and say, well, gee, that's a workforce. Those people, if they're moving into an apartment or a condo or a small home, they're new to the workforce. They're going to have the types of jobs we have in our area. Most of them are single still at that point, right? So that demand for that demographic is about studio and one-bedroom apartments, and they don't need a building with a playground for the kids. They don't necessarily impact, but they also demographically tend to shop locally and go to local restaurants. And so from an economic development standpoint, as well as a housing diversity standpoint, maybe we look at developments there.
So let me just interrupt.
Oh, go ahead.
Well, that sort of ties into kind of where just our overall planning as a town. Kind of, we have this master plan initiative going on. So you just threw out a bunch of just different terms here that I know the master plan. We had our community input session many months ago. Sort of all of this has to tie in together, right? So there's got to be work of the working group, right, and ultimately the trust going forward to kind of tie into the overall master plan for the town, right?
Absolutely. And a member of the housing subcommittee for the master plan advisory committee is attending our meetings and participating in the data analysis. He has shared the survey questions and results and the analysis that they've gone through so far. And right now we're working on expanding that, asking additional questions that we'll be putting out to the community. And all of the data analysis we're doing, much of it is work that subcommittee would do as well. And so we're sharing that back to the housing subcommittee and the master planning advisory. Got two of those units and if they have specific things they want us to look at, we'll look at those as we're going through this process.
Well, and I asked that question sort of intentionally because I think that we've got a lot going on here in Westborough, and I think I think it's important, Alan, as you know, for the community to see how the interlocking nature of the work that's being done. It's not like the trust is just over here and not thinking about kind of the other projects that are going on. Just like sort
of like the idea.
How could a new project help with sidewalks that are that are needed in a particular part of town? So I think sometimes maybe the public that doesn't sort of kind of live their lives in government, they may not appreciate that there actually is thoughtful planning going on there.
There is a lot of thoughtful planning and coordination, and again, I've given different examples, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to do. There are possibilities, and one of the advantages of having an affordable housing trust is the wide variety and types of projects the trust can undertake. And so there are housing trusts, for example, that also being sensitive to increasing the school population, might actually purchase a home at market rate that's for sale, do any necessary renovations, and convert the deed to an affordable housing property, and then market that and sell the property or rent it as a rental, affordable housing rental property, is a way of increasing affordable housing stock or workforce housing stock without adding net new units to the town and potentially increasing the school population.
It points to
can take property that's been seized through
exactly that in the nature of real estate
and be given that by the town to convert and use as affordable housing. There are housing trusts that have converted old municipal buildings, former school buildings, into residential locations. And the housing trust can even help fund the affordable component of private developments.
Right. You had mentioned that the trust, remember we started talking about this, that the trust actually could loan money to a developer to, let's say, refurbish an existing affordable unit, or to create a new one, certainly, but to loan that money and then ultimately, be paid back so that fund is replenished.
Absolutely. And there have been trusts, for example, that have where there have been existing affordable units in an apartment building where the roof was damaged, and the affordable units were going to be taken off the market because of water leaks and the subsequent mold problems. And so the Affordable Housing Trust helped provide funds to replace and repair the roof and keep those units operational and available. And permitting residential development, particularly with affordable housing components, is time consuming and can be somewhat expensive. In that, before you get the permit, you need the engineering work done, you need the architecture work done, you need the stormwater management work done. And
Arthur's nodding to all this.
It's extremely complex, and it's a large investment for to go for a special permit that may not get approved, or may not get approved in a way that as a developer it's affordable for you to build. So affordable housing trusts can provide developers, with respect to the affordable housing component, they can actually loan them money on pre-development costs to get through the permitting process. And it can be at a 0% or a low interest rate, which saves the developer money, makes the project more affordable, and again, helps promote more affordable housing. That money is a loan, it comes back.
Yep.
When the developer gets their construction loans, part of that loan pays back, the permitting loan and the bridge loan.
He's terrific.
I know, isn't
She keeps bringing these people on, and they're like terrific. And every time, Shelby, I want to check with you and with our invisible force behind the scenes and check on time, because I'm thinking that we're about out on time. Aiden, are we about out on time?
We are.
In that case, I want to say thank you to Shelby, and Al, I really want to say thank you to you. This is just an incredible effort. And I just want to mention to the folks who are listening, there was a reference to the fact, well, if you're out there, you don't think that there's a lot of coordination, but really there is. I have worked in a lot of communities regarding this kind of work. Believe me, in most communities, there isn't a lot of communication and coordination. This is the uniqueness of what is going on here in Westborough, is that you've got this wonderful coordination, and hopefully through these shows where Shelby keeps bringing these folks on, you as folks here can get a sense of the various players that we're playing and how they're working with each other. So, Shelby, Alan, this has been great. Yeah. Shelby, this is terrific.
As part of that,
close.
Yeah, no, we'll wrap up. What I'd love to do at some point, let Alan and the trust continue their good work, and as they get a little further down the road, bring him back. I'd, love to, Arthur, you've got so much experience here to kind of have further.
There was
holes, if you will, in kind of the thinking and where the direction is going, because
what's known as an inclusionary zoning.
He wants to see and understand, and I want to thank Alan for all the work that's that's been done and for coming on today. So, not sure who our guest is at our next show, but we're always working behind the scenes to bring on someone interesting. So thank you, Alan.
Interesting folks. That's
thank you,
great.
Arthur.
And Alan, could you also just kind of give our folks here a contact information, so that if there's somebody that's trying to
place else in town,
or some idea of kind of who to contact, and we'll make sure that's a banner on the show. The folks at cable TV here take care of all that stuff.
Okay,
that'd be great.
So they can certainly email me directly, Edinberg@town.westborough.ma.us, or they can go to the town website and look under boards and committees. They'll see the Affordable Housing Trust. They can click $4 million. It comes in.
That's terrific. Thanks a million. Thank you, Shelby. Thank you for watching. We'll look forward to seeing you on the next installment of Frank and Mary here in Westborough. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you for having me.